G'day, Travis here, aka That Slot Car Guy on Instagram. And today's video is going to be about other classes of slot cars that you can get into other than your home racing track setup that you can pick up from your local hobby shop. So what am I talking about? Yes, we'll start off first with your 132. This is a Carrera, 132 Carrera, Scalatrix, SRC, slotted, etc. slot car. Now this is what you'll be traditionally looking at when you go to a hobby shop, easily to obtain, but in its own right, these can be turned into weapons of race cars at your local club. Now, home racing is different. You can set your own rules, set your own tone, but if you go to a club, there is rules you have to follow when it comes to each of these classes. Now, depending on what class you're in, this car can be then transformed with tires, motor, weight, etc. to be part of another class that this would not normally perform at home in your slot car track. So let's just move away from the 132 first, because I will have a chat about these before I finish the video, because there is so much you can do with just a base slot car. But the first one we're going to talk about is, and I love this, is the Womp. Now, yeah, love that name, Womp, Wompy, whatever you want to sort of nickname it, but the Womp. Now what this is, this chassis that you're looking at is a V-dub bug, which love my V-dub bug, love my Porsches as well. But this is a controlled class that you can join at your hobby or your slot car track, sorry. Now, when I mean controlled, not too sure what yours would be in your part of the world, but normally it's a one-piece brass chassis, which yes, this is brass. One-piece brass chassis, you'd have controlled tires, you have the same motor. I think normally they run a 16D motor, but depending on where you're from, yours might be different. And you've got the flexi body on top. Of course, weight is going to be an issue too, so you have to be on a certain weight, and it's a 132 size. Doesn't look it, but that's what they class it as. So this is Womp. Now what's unique about these cars is the front tires are little rubber bands, and I'll see if I can get a close-up. So these front tires are, it's probably not gonna, are little rubber bands. That's all they are. And with slot cars, we don't normally care much, unless it's four-wheel drive, about having front traction. As long as they're touching, we're happy with that. It's the backs that do the work. This is rear-wheel drive, so this is very tail-happy as a setup when you're racing around your tracks. There's a lot of control prior to going to a corner, and a lot of control you need when you're coming out. And that all comes down to how you pull the trigger. Now, before we move on to the next one, we'll talk about the trigger, because it's changed a lot. Now, I use a slotted Digi, and this is just a version 2. This is SCP2, and this is way different to what you'll get in your own slot car set at home. So, again, this can be used as a digital controller. It can run different chips. What I mean by chips, there's a different slot that goes in there to plug into your different sets. But the beauty of this is you've got throttle, power trim, brake, and your curve. And what that means is you can change this on the fly. And curve is your power overall. Braking, you might not want any engine braking at all, meaning you're letting go of the trigger, and it's going to really lock the rears up and unsettle the car like a real car. This thing here lets you tune your setup to the car you're about to race. Now, if you haven't tuned the car, meaning done the hot laps prior to racing, you're qualifying, your setup can be all over the place, and you're just chasing a setup through the whole race. Very, very hard to get the car right. So, like real racing, we do have hot laps and qualifying and practice, and that's where you tune your controller to suit the car you're about to run. So, very cool thing. Slotted makes it, so I'll give them a little pluggo, but it is I won't zoom in because my ugly mug's in the way. Very, very cool controller. So we've spoken about the Womp. Let's move on to let's say, oh actually, and here's another look at another version of a Womp. I don't know, and don't hold me to it, I don't know if this is a traditional Womp car. It's not brass base, it's the metal base. It's got a unique shell on it. It's a Porsche shell with the beautiful Golf livery. But again, control tires, weight and motor, and flexi shell. Cool car, not an alternative to the Womp. You can get different chassis, so it doesn't matter about the shell. But again, depending on where you race, this might be accepted, might not. But that's a newer version of that chassis. So very cool to have both of them. And now let's move on to a little bit quicker car. Now, this magnificent piece of art is a GTC Flexi Car. Now, this is my race car. I did race this at my local hobby shop, Mr. Slot Car in Hallam, Melbourne, Australia. Now, again, this is controlled. I think these are a 2-piece or a 3-piece, I can't remember. Chassis, they clip together, controlled motor, controlled tyres, weight, and again, flexi chassis. Now, these are very quick. Huge skill is needed to master these, and again, you need to set up your controller, because you might race this and then move on to this straight after, and you have to reset that controller. So you need to know your settings. You run a book, you need to know what settings you are for that track, and then save it into the controller so you can run this thing. So the key to this is these are very quick down the straight and can be very, very quick around the corners, but unsettling this through a corner, if you're playing on the trigger through a corner, it will get happy tappy and she'll just spin and lock up and fall over. So you really need to get it into a corner, nice side drift, power it through, and it won't drift, it'll track through, and then you squirt it out and she'll come out the corner and take off again. That's what you need to do with these. There's real talent, and I don't have that. Not bad, but I'm not the greatest. Real talent to control a GTC. Awesome fun. And again, the reason I'm talking about these classes is some of my 132 slot cars my home racing cars, are too nice to race. So this is a one-mate class where you know you've got a chance. If you can master these skills, you won't damage this. I mean, if you do, you replace the tyres, you replace the shell. So GTC, check your local racetrack to see if they do it, get into it. The Womps are around about 100 to 160 to set up, and this will be around about the same, about 160, and you're good to go, maybe 170, depending on where you live, but then they're good to go. You'll be changing tyres a lot, but that's racing. So, very cool car, a lot of skill needed. Now the Mac Daddy. This is the weirdest looking slot car I've ever seen. I haven't yet to have a chance to race these, and I probably won't, but this is the winged car, again controlled. Obviously chassis, weight, tyres, motor, depending on where you are, it'll be controlled like a real race. Again, skinny front tyres, you'll find that's a trend with the higher end cars, but this thing's all about aero, all about downforce. So you've got, it's pretty hard to see, but this is being cut, there you go. This is being cut nicely. So if you're going around corners, you've got a bit of like the F1 side pressure, like their rear fin. You've got this massive movable wing at the back, which will capture the air at the end and hold down through the straights, and then once it gets to the straights, you'll open up and then the sides will take over. If you Google winged slot cars, these are incredible. Depending on what class again you're in, you can't see these things. They're around the track and people are thinking you're just holding on. You are at the end, but to set these up to be able to do that for that track, you really need to know what you're doing. So very, very high skill recommended for this class. Expensive, I think I just checked eBay and that they can go up around the 250 plus mark. I'm lucky to have two variations. So I've got two winged cars and I picked this up from a slot car lot. Very excited to run them. But again, if you look at them individually, very similar cars. Again, controlled tyres, controlled weight, awesome class. Now I thought I'll add a bit of a special class in. Haven't had a chance to do it. And this is all club racing, so this stuff you can do at home, but make your own rules up. But this is club racing. Now, this is probably the coolest class because it incorporates two different slot car worlds, and this is slot car drag racing. Now, let's talk about the shell first. This is the Mustang. It's a 124 plastic kit. Don't know if it's Tamiya, don't know if it's what the other brands are, but this is a 124 kit that plastic kit you can buy from any hobby shop and put it on top. Granted, the shell has got to match the class, pro stock, that kind of jazz, but then this chassis itself is a kit chassis. You can buy this chassis off the shelf. So it's got the wheelie bars, then you've got to mount the motor, and depending on what class you're in, motor, tyre, weight, etc., that all kicks in again. And I believe some classes you have to have full interior, and if it's got a pop-out motor, the motor's got to be in there. So it's going to be a full working car, meaning if it's a kit car and you've built it and it's meant to look like a Mustang with a blower, it's going to look like a Mustang with a blower. So very, very, very cool class, very fast. Again, we're very lucky in Melbourne, Australia. We've got one really good track. We've probably got some really good tracks elsewhere, but Luckily in Melbourne, Australia, we've got Mr. Slot Car. He's got some very nice, beautiful wood-routed tracks for club racing, but he's got, I'd say, almost one of the best drag tracks, 4-lane. I think it was a 4-lane. I believe it's a 4-lane drag track, when I'll get some footage of that soon. Incredible. He's a craftsman when it comes to the tracks, but also there's two Petes. Also another Pete is a craftsman when it comes to building slot cars. So awesome place. If you're in Melbourne, Australia, go check out Mr. Slot Car in Hallam. But here is another slot car category. So I did say I was going to go back to the 132, and the reason I will, and thanks for watching all that, that is a couple of different classes that you can get into with slot cars. So it's not just the pull of the trigger, there is a lot of racing that you can be done. And a lot of these are very, very challenging, like anything you do, RC racing, go-karts, they've all got their own unique traits. But let's finish on the 132 home racing style. And I just wanted to talk about a couple of makes and models that are very different. So we've got the Carreras, which they can run digital and analog, so it can scale electrics, but we've got Disca Association in Europe, which they are now the leaders, I believe, in the world in digital racing. So this can then be transformed if it fits the class. It's all about class. Could be done up to suit digital racing, which is the future when it comes to multiple people racing at once on the same lane. Has it taken off in Australia? No. We do have a lot of kits at our own homes, but a digital racetrack, to my knowledge at the moment in Melbourne, hasn't existed for us to go and all race. I'd love to do it, but digital racing, I believe, is the future if you want to get to real racing. So that's where these all come into their own. Let's just move away from digital. Let's have a look at SRC. We all know I'm wearing their beautiful brand new t-shirt, which represents this car. But the reason I've used them is, this is the SRC Lancia, but this is in the Chrono version. And what that means is, they do two versions normally of the cars, Chrono and Original. Original is highly detailed, beautiful looking car. I'll be too scared to smash it because it's just gorgeous. Where this is highly detailed, minimal weight, minimal missing part, meaning, yeah, we can lose some stuff off it, but it is a watered down version of their true to detail car. So, and you probably think, Trav, that looks like a true to detail car. It is, but it's missing a lot of the engine detail, the weight, and this is your club racing car. It comes across the board. The 4 Capris, they're F1 cars, they do it in both mixes. So you can actually race one and have one on the shelf, which I think is an awesome idea. But again, as a club car, this can be tuned to whatever your club is. Europe's very big on rally racing. So I like that, where one car at a time's on the track, you've got to do the track as quick as you can and then finish, and then next person goes and there's a leaderboard. Love that. Again, not very big here in Australia, but another category. And check out SRC's website, www.src.es, because they've got the two versions, Chrono and Original, Collector and Racer. So really, really cool. But we won't rule out people like SCX, same car, but they can also be manipulated to race at your club. Better tyres, a little bit of weight, bigger motor, etc. And these also can be tuned to run, but awesome at home. So, but the last car we'll talk about, and this goes in the category of the NSRs, the Revos, and I've got a slotted in my hand. These are now being built so you can, ready to be modified. Out of the box, extremely good. So Revos, NSRs, this category. For home racing, extremely good. For club racing, wicked cars. You can really spend minimal money on these to get them going, and you can have a class dedicated to this style of car. So check it out. I know you're probably thinking, when we're going to find these other weird and wonderful cars, your Womps, but your home racing cars can be used at your track under a different category. So hope it's a little bit informative. Would love to get some footage. We've just come out of lockdown now, and Mr. Slot Cars just opened up, so it'd be great to revisit and start filming and really take some good footage of some good slot car racing. But just a couple of different options if you want to go racing. So if anyone ever says to you again, do you just pull the trigger? Well, you can, or you can race like any other car. So hope you've enjoyed it. Please make some comments. If you want to see some of these run, I'll happily make a trip down to the slot car track once it opens. But enjoy, be safe. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Bye.